Hey guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to do a quick tutorial. I'm going to show you my slicking process for edges. I have done a blog post about this on our website, so I'll put the link in the description about if you want to go read that. I've had a few questions on slicking edges and kind of what I use, mainly what this is. When people see this in the video, they're wondering what this is and what's in my water can. The only thing that's in this little can, it looks like it might be oil or gum tragacanth or whatever, but all it is water. That's all I put in there. It's just water with a little dauber, and that's just for applying. I'm going to show you all that in just a second. But this is going to be a real short, quick tutorial video. I'm going to show you my rundown on edges on both really thin leather and heavy leather, and that way you can kind of do both because they are a little bit different when you're slicking those. So let's get to that tutorial. Alright guys, so first thing on whenever I'm slicking edges and stuff, you're going to need a few items to do this well. The first thing you're going to need is some canvas, and this canvas I buy it at Hobby Lobby. You can buy it by the yard, any craft store or fabric store. You can probably buy some nice heavy canvas. I don't buy the heaviest one they have. I think they have one a little bit heavier than this. I'm not sure the actual grade, but it's just canvas, you know, just some normal canvas. You can also buy, if you watch at Hobby Lobby, sometimes they'll run some sales where they'll have those little canvas bags for sale that you can paint and people paint on and do stuff like that. They're like little totes. And I've actually found sometimes you can buy those cheaper than you can buy this canvas on the yard, so just keep an eye out for that. And of course just cut it up and make how many ever pieces. But I'll cut, when I buy that canvas, I buy a yard, maybe a yard and a half, and I've had this little fold of it. I've had this for probably 5-6 years, so I don't go through a lot of this. So don't go buy 10 or 15 yards of canvas. You just need a little bit. 1 yard will be fine, and then I usually cut them about this size. These canvas squares, you can cut them whatever your preference is. This one's about 7 by 8, something like that, but it's just a nice piece. And then I usually fold it in half and then fold it in half again, and that's how I'm using it. That's how I'm working. I'll show you that in just a second. The first thing I do with a new piece of canvas, as you can see, this one is really nasty, has quite a bit of stuff on it and everything, but that's when they start getting really good, actually, is once they've kind of gotten broke in. So in order to help with that and to make it a little bit faster, I take this white saddle soap, and it's the white saddle soap cream that comes in a can. They come in some smaller cans. Those are the ones I prefer, but they were out, and then we bought the big can the last time. This dries out a little too fast if you don't use it a lot. It's dried out on me, and I use it often. So if you're in a smaller shop where you're not in your shop every single day for 8 or 10 hours a day, I wouldn't suggest buying these big ones. If you can find the little smaller ones, I think they're 4 ounces. They're a lot better. But anyway, you take your brand new piece of canvas after you cut your piece, and I just take it in here and just rub it around inside there and get some of that soap on there. You don't need to put water in there or anything like that. You're just trying to get just a little bit of soap on there like that, and then rub that canvas together. And as you're doing that, you're working that saddle soap into the fibers of the canvas, and that just helps to kind of get this rag started to where, because right at first it's pretty rough and dry, and so it kind of takes a little break-in time before it'll actually start slicking your edges well. So I like to jump start these rags like that, and there's kind of a magic spot in there when you're using these, from the time they're brand new to the time they're dead and you throw them away. There's kind of a little season in there when they work really, really well, and so you'll start to learn that what works best for you. But this one's starting to get close to its end time. I mean, it's still doing a good job, but at some point I'll replace it just to start with a fresh canvas. But anyhow, I just use that soap just to kind of break in the rag. And then the next thing is some type of slicking stick. I mainly only use this on our heavier leathers, like saddle fenders, saddle skirts especially. They're really thick. Horns, stuff like that. That's when I'll use a slicker stick usually, but it's just used again to rub the edge and get it burnished and to kind of get it started. The next thing that we're going to use is Glycerin saddle soap bar. You can usually buy this at any feed store or tack shop. Very old, been around forever, so they're pretty easy. It's pretty easy to find. But I buy it. It comes in a big old long bar like this, and I just cut, you know, about that much off, maybe an inch or two, to where you've got a little cube or a little square. And then I'll take I'll just go ahead and show you real quick. When I get a new one, I'll take and cut me just a little bit of that off, like that. And then I just throw this brick back in my box. So I've got it. one of these bricks will last me probably 2 months. And some people don't use this method, so if you don't like to use the glycerin soap on your projects, that's fine. A lot of the people that do slick edges a lot just use water, and that's fine too. This is just to help jumpstart the slicking process. And so, but anyhow, I cut my square, and then I just kind of take those corners off like that, and that way you don't have the hard corners. Again, this is just my preference and how I like to do it. And then now that piece there is ready to go. Now as you start using it, it starts looking like this, where you start to get some little channels in there where you've been rubbing it on the leather, and that's fine. And as if they get really deep and start getting in my way, I'll just trim them off, and then and then that'll give me a new flat surface to use, and I'll continue using this piece until it gets to where it's a pain in the butt to hold on with. And then, like I said, back to the water can. All this is just a little tin can with some water in it and a wool dauber. There's no oil, there's no anything, there's nothing in there but water. So that's all we're using. So real quick, just to show you, I've got a piece of heavy saddle skirting. This is 13-15 ounce Herman oak. I've already edged it with a number 4 edger, probably number 5, it's been sharpened so much. So I've edged top and bottom. I just take my water, put my water on my edge, try to just keep it where my edger hit is mainly what I'm trying to do. And then I'll take my soap and my glycerin bar and just lightly rub a little bit on there. I don't use a ton of this. You want more water than soap, so don't put a lot of this on there. It starts to bleed over everywhere, and then your oil doesn't take real good. So I'm just very lightly just putting a light coat. That's about all I put on there. And then you can take your slicker stick and you can start to slick it with that, just to kind of get those fibers started to lay down and get smooth. And you're beginning the burnishing process there. Once I get it to where it looks nice, I'll take my rag and I'll start working my rag back and forth. What you're doing with the canvas rag, what you're going for is a combination of pressure and heat, the friction of rubbing the canvas back and forth, plus that pressure of your fingers pushing hard on it on the edge, is what's causing the burnish and causing the edge to actually kind of heat up. The soap kind of heats up, the fibers start to lay down, they become smooth. And the more you rub on it and the more you kind of keep working it like that, as it's starting to dry, you'll start feeling that canvas almost stick to the leather. Like you'll hear it kind of snapping. It'll kind of feel like it's sticking to the leather a little bit. That's what you want, because that's when you're actually starting to create enough heat and friction in there that it's starting to actually burn in a way that the ends of the fibers. And so that's what we're wanting as we're doing that. You hear that. You can hear the clicking in there. It kind of starts making a snapping noise, like there's causing some stickiness there within the friction, and that's what we want. And so once we get that done, you can see that edge is nice and shiny. It's got a little reflective mode about it, and so you can kind of see that it's nice and smooth. I usually won't add any more water, but I will if I've got a spot in there that's not just right. I'll go back with my slicking stick. I don't use any more soap or any more water. I don't want it too wet, but I don't want it too dry, but I want to be able to be sure that all of the fibers are laid down well. The purpose of slicking is it's important to get a good burnish on your edges, not only just because it looks pretty and because when you put your dye on there and everything, it's gonna look nice, but also leather, the grain side or the hair side of the leather, that is somewhat protected already from the elements, because that's the outside of the skin. That's what it's designed to do. The inside, of course, is the flesh side, so not as weather resistant, or the rough outside as some people would call it. And so usually you're lining this, like say on a belt or on a knife scabbard or something, that's lined. But when you cut something, so when you cut something out, which everything is cut out, you now have an open edge. And with that open edge, it's more apt to wick water and moisture in through the sides. And leather dries from the outside in, and so it's going to start drying where that opening is. It's going to start letting off its oil or taking in water or anything like that, and it's going to start to dry out faster from that cut edge. So when you burnish, you're sealing that cut edge so that you don't get any moisture loss from there. So that's how I go about slicking. Now, if you're going to do something that's really thin, So say this right here is a piece of 5 ounce, probably 5 ounce. Herman oak, just veg tan leather. I've already edged it with the number 1, and so now we'll go ahead and I'm just going to put my water along my edge. Like I said, I'm not trying to soak it, I'm just trying to get it damp with the dauber. And now on this, if it's thick enough, much smaller than a 5 ounce, sometimes I won't use the soap because it's so thin, it's just hard to get it on there, and you're not working with a ton of leather. Now this stuff is real flimsy, and sometimes it's real difficult to get a good burnish here, so what I'll do is lay it flat on my bench, take my slicking rag, and then push a finger down into that transition from the leather to the bench to where you're causing that canvas to get inside there, and I'll just work it on the top all the way around on the bench. And you'll be very surprised at how, used to I would cuss the thin leathers and I wouldn't even edge them because they were just so hard to handle and to edge and not mar up your edges trying to get a good burnish on them. But if you do it like this, you don't have near the issue and your pattern stays true, and you don't just fold your edges up all over itself. And then you turn it over and do the opposite side and do the same thing to it. And you can go as fast as you want. You can really get a nice burnish. You can even do this with like 2 ounce lining leather for, say, pockets on a padfolio or a notebook or something like that, or even on wallets. This is a great way to slick those edges and make it look that much more professional. Then once I do that, then I'll kind of come around here and just real lightly make sure that I don't have anything I missed. But then that gets the edge there. And now a lot of people will dye their edges before they slick them. I do the opposite, and I know most of the folks I know do it this way, and that is you edge it and slick it and let those edges dry, and then come back in and dye them, and you can just dye them with regular dye. The edge coats and some of those edge paints and stuff, I personally don't find them that they have a very professional look. They look too paint-like, and too thick. And so I just like to see a dyed edge if I'm going to dye edges. I don't always dye my edges, but if I am, I'm just going to use a dye. So like on this here, we would let that edge dye completely, or we would let this edge dry completely, come back with the dark brown, and just catch where our edge is with that. Same thing here, I'm going to let this dry completely till it's back to original color. If you try to put dye on this right now with it being wet, it's going to just stay on top of there, and it's got more chances to bleed into your actual work surface. So you want to be sure and let all your edges dye completely as much as possible, and that's it. I mean, edging is kind of one of those necessary evils. We all have to do it, and you've got machines, and there's some burnishing machines, and there's some different wheels and whatnot that you can get to help you to slick your edges. In all actuality, I've tried a bunch of them and been doing it for 15 years, and I still do them all by hand because that's the only way that they turn out the way I want them to look. And so I would just get used to find a process that works for you. If you don't like this whole process, don't use it. There's many other ways to do it. The gum tragacanth is very good. I think that's how that's pronounced. I'm not really sure, but there's a lot of good different ways to do this. Find the way that works for you, and just settle in and figure that you're going to have to slick edges if you're going to do leather work, and there's really no fast way around it. If you have another process that you like better, send it to me. I'd love to hear what other people do. Like I said, I know the majority of the folks on a higher level stuff only use water, and they say they just use water and a slicking rag and slicking stick, and it does work. It just takes a lot more elbow grease. So you're not going to get away from it without putting in the elbow grease, but that saddle soap tends to help a little bit to speed that process up just a bit. Plus, I think the saddle soap has just a little bit of a sealing capability to where it kind of fix the edges to where you don't get quite as much moisture loss through those edges because of that saddle soap. So much like waxing your edges or hot waxing an edge on a horn or something like that, the saddle soap does a very similar thing as far as preventing moisture loss. So anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed that. Just a real quick tip on edging. If you got any questions, let me know down in the description or send me an email. I'll put the link to our blog article that we did on slicking edges. It's a written article, and it goes through the same process here as well. You got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate it. Y'all have a good one.